It is still early, very early. The stars are fading from a sky just beginning to blush with pale light. The air is still, broken only by the distant chirp of birds and the first soft crow of a rooster. In a village nestled somewhere in ancient times, perhaps a Roman province or a sleepy Greek hillside, life stirs gently. Homes are small, made of stone, clay, and wood. Low doors, thick walls, and scents of hearth smoke and earth fill the space. Curved clay roof tiles glisten with morning dew. Some houses have tiny gardens. Others sit close together, like sleeping animals. Inside one such home, a child shifts beneath a rough wool blanket. Their bed is simple, just straw on a wooden frame, with wool or linen layered above. The straw rustles faintly. The air is cool, still holding the hush of night. A parent rises, not quickly but with quiet intent. There is no alarm, no urgent clock. They stretch and listen. The village stirs in whispers. Someone nearby is lighting their hearth. Goats in a pen begin to move. The floor creaks under bare feet. The hearth is only soft gray ash, but soon it's coaxed to life. The parent adds twigs, thin splinters. A breeze from the window helps the flame catch. Flickering orange light dances across the walls. A pot, left on a shelf, is filled with water and herbs, maybe leftovers, maybe fresh. Perhaps it's barley water with fennel, maybe a thin porridge, thickening as it warms. The smells rise, smoke, steam, a breath of rosemary. The house begins to wake. A child rubs sleep from their eyes. Another watches the fire in silence. No one speaks loudly. Morning moves gently. Cool clay jugs are brought in from outside. One holds washing water, poured into a shallow basin. Another carries goat's milk, kept covered overnight. Everything has its rhythm, its place. Outside, a neighbor waves. No loud greetings, just a nod, a quiet smile. The village begins to hum, not buzz. Chickens cluck in the distance. A donkey brays. A door across the way opens, spilling soft light onto dusty earth. Children step outside barefoot, feeling the cool ground beneath them. A parent sweeps the doorway with a branch broom, brushing away yesterday's dust, making space for today. Even the sun is slow. Its light creeps across stone, touches garden herbs, warms red-tiled rooftops. In every corner of the village, there's a gentle acknowledgement of the new day. Not shouted, not rushed, simply accepted. This is a morning of soft steps and quiet tasks, of porridge stirred in silence, herbs picked with care, faces washed in cool water. The house begins to stretch and breathe. And so do you. There's no hurry, no race to run. Let this ancient morning continue to unfold. Let your breath move with it, steady, quiet, calm. In the quiet stillness of the village garden, fragrance speaks louder than color. It's still early, and the sun filters gently through olive trees, scattering dappled light across a patchwork of herbs. The air is rich with scent, cool mint, sharp rosemary, mellow sage, and something soft and sleepy, like lavender, touched by first light. A woman steps gently between the rows of green. Her feet are bare, her steps familiar. She knows each plant like a friend, where it thrives, when it blooms, how its scent shifts through the day. Her fingers graze the tops, pinching here, snipping there with a small bronze knife. She's not just gathering for cooking, though that will come. This is a fragrant harvest, a gathering of scents to freshen the home, calm the air, and lighten the spirit. She ties small bundles, rosemary and thyme together. They balance well and hang easily near doors or windows. Lavender stands alone, regal in its perfume. Mint leaves are strung on thread, left to dangle and dry in warm air. Children come to help, not as a task, but a game, a lesson. They learn by scent, not sight. One closes their eyes and sniffs a leaf, peppermint. Another, lemon balm. They giggle, but they learn. These are quiet teachings, passed down with love. Inside, herbs are laid flat, on clay shelves in shallow bowls. Crushed mint underfoot cools the room and keeps insects at bay. Sage is crumbled into water used for wiping surfaces. A bit of basil might be tucked behind an ear, for its sweet, spicy comfort. In finer homes, small sachets are sewn, filled with dried leaves and petals. These are tucked into laundry baskets, between blankets, beneath beds. The cloth is old linen, soft from time and washing. It holds scent well. Over time, these sachets blend into the background, a gentle presence in daily life. Above the hearth, herbs hang to dry. Their scent fills the room. Their gentle crackle in the warmth is reassuring, a sign that all is well, that the home is cared for. Others are left outside, strung with flowers on simple lines, for beauty as much as fragrance. There is no single recipe for scent. Every home has its own blend. Some prefer bay leaves and clove. Others lean toward fennel's musk and lemon peel's brightness. The combinations are endless, each one a quiet signature. Even animals are included. A bit of mint is tucked into the goat's straw. Chickens peck among petals of marigold and chamomile. This isn't luxury, it's balance. A belief that life, human and animal, flourishes in sweet air. When the sun climbs and the herbs soften in the heat, the bundles are brought inside. They dry slowly, losing moisture but keeping their soul. Some will last weeks, others full seasons. A few will meet the fire, giving one last breath of scent to the air. This is how homes were made fragrant, not with bottles or candles, but with care, with hands in the soil, with wisdom passed from mother to child, with the quiet knowledge that the air we breathe shapes how we live and how we rest. To modern eyes, ancient homes might seem rustic. No running water, no electricity, no rows of cleaners beneath the sink. But these homes weren't messy or neglected. Cleaning was a daily rhythm, quiet, steady, and full of care. Not rushed, not dreaded, just part of living. Imagine a small stone dwelling, its packed earth floor smoothed by countless footsteps. Morning light slips through a narrow window. The home is already stirring. The first act of care is sweeping. No plastic brooms here, only hand-tied bundles of stiff reeds, bound with twine or strips of cloth. Some are short, used from a crouch. Others longer, swung in slow, graceful strokes. The sweeping is gentle, almost meditative. Dust is guided toward the door, not pushed, not scattered. Each stroke stirs the air, blending the earthy scent of clay with faint traces of mint or thyme. Sometimes children help, giggling as they tidy their corner of the room, proud to join the ritual. Ash is often scattered first, a light layer, cool and fine. Gathered from the hearth, it absorbs moisture, pulls in odor, and clings to dirt. After sweeping once, they do it again, this time more thoroughly. The floor is left dry, clean, and lightly perfumed. Next comes wiping and washing. There's no modern soap. Instead, people use diluted vinegar or lightly soured wine mixed with water. A worn cloth, linen or wool, is dipped, wrung out, and used to wipe the walls, low furniture, even exposed beams. There's no artificial scent, only a faint sharpness from the vinegar, which fades quickly, leaving the room feeling crisp and cool. In warmer months, herbs join the water: rosemary, basil, lavender, or mint. As the cloth moves, these herbs release their oils, filling the space with soft, natural fragrance. This isn't just for freshness. It's for comfort, for balance, even for health. In some homes, fresh rushes, long green reeds, are laid across the floor, not just for beauty. As people walk, the stalks release their scent. Over time, they dry, collect dust, and are swept away, replaced by new ones. This has its own rhythm: fresh rushes for a festival after illness or with the changing seasons. Cleaning means tending to belongings, too. Clay jars are wiped down and set in the sun to dry. Wool blankets are shaken out over a garden wall. Wooden bowls are scrubbed with sand, rinsed with salt water or vinegar. In finer homes, brass and bronze utensils are polished with olive oil and ash, rubbed to a gentle glow. Windows are few, but those that exist, simple slits or openings with wood or cloth, are opened to let air pass through. Fresh air is part of the cleaning. It sweeps through, carries scents, and clears what's stale. Even the fire is cleaned. Ashes aren't discarded casually. Some are kept for washing, others sprinkled on garden soil. The hearth is wiped down, stones realigned, tools placed just so. A clean hearth is a clean heart of the home, both practical and symbolic. Children learn through presence, not scolding, not chores, just by watching, helping, repeating. They learn to sweep without raising dust, to wring cloth without dripping, to see when a rush has dried and needs to be replaced. And like so much in ancient life, cleaning connects to the world outside. People notice when lavender blooms stronger, when rainwater in jars smells especially fresh, when dust glows in a shaft of light. Cleaning isn't just the removal of dirt. It's harmony between space and season, between body and home, between spirit and earth. There are no checklists, no timers, only rhythm, only care. And when the day's cleaning is finished, when ash is swept, air is fresh, herbs hang drying, and the hearth glows once more, there's no sense of weariness, no frustration, just peace. The house is ready, ready for a meal, a nap, a shared story, a quiet moment. And in this ancient way of cleaning, there's something deeper than hygiene. There's reverence for home, for life, for the quiet beauty of a place tended with love. Bathing in the ancient world wasn't something squeezed between errands or rushed before a busy morning. It was different, set apart, a ritual, quiet, sometimes shared, always intentional. Whether done alone at home or alongside neighbors in early bathhouses, bathing offered calm, comfort, and yes, cleanliness too. Let's begin in a modest home. The bathing space is just a corner by the hearth. A low clay basin holds clean water, warmed by firelight. Nearby, a soft linen cloth, worn from many washes, hangs neatly. A sea sponge rests in a bowl, light and porous, ready to be dipped. Water is poured slowly, not splashed, never hurried. A person might sit beside the basin, soaking hands first, then face. The water is warm, not hot. It's often infused with herbs. Thyme to cleanse, lemon balm to soothe, chamomile to calm the skin and spirit. Washing follows a rhythm. A cloth is dipped, wrung gently, then passed over skin, arms, neck, feet, each part cared for, one by one. There is no scrubbing, only soothing motions, back and forth, like a lullaby for the body. Afterward, the skin is patted dry with another cloth, then hung up, ready for tomorrow. In wealthier homes, oil is part of the ritual, usually olive, sometimes almond, often infused with herbs or flowers. A small amount is poured into a clay dish and rubbed onto the skin, not for shine, not for scent, but for care, to soften, to soothe, to protect. Then comes the Strigil, a smooth curved tool drawn across the body. It scrapes off oil, along with dust, sweat, and the day's fatigue. It's never sharp. It glides, like an exhale, leaving calm in its wake. This method doesn't just clean, it restores. The scent of oil lingers on the skin, mingling with faint herbal smoke from the hearth. It becomes part of a person's presence, the air they carry with them. Bathing was social too, especially in towns and cities. Early bathhouses were simple: stone walls, wooden beams, shallow pools. Later, in Roman times, they became complex: heated floors, changing rooms, warm and cold baths. But even before the grandeur, Bathing brought people together. In small villages, water was drawn from wells or streams, carried in clay jugs, heated by fire. In summer, bathing might happen outside, beneath trees, in cool courtyards. Water shimmered in sunlight. Laughter floated with birdsong. Parents bathed their children, humming softly as they worked. A warm cloth brushed a cheek. A sponge squeezed over tiny toes. Each motion, an act of care. There were no mirrors, no scented soaps in bottles, no countdown from a shower timer. But there was rhythm, grace, a quiet respect for the body. Some families bathed in the evening, before bed, others at midday, after chores. There were no rules, only one understanding. Bathing should never be rushed. It wasn't just about washing, it was about resetting. A soft break between one part of the day and the next. And afterward, clean and calm, people felt renewed. Garments, fresh from the line. Skin, warm from oil. Air, scented with rosemary and steam. In the quiet of ancient life, bathing wasn't a routine. It was a pause, a gift, a whispered kindness to oneself. Laundry day in the ancient world was a tactile, earthy, and surprisingly fragrant affair. It wasn't automated or invisible. It was hands in water, cloth in sunlight, and breezes scented with herbs. Washing clothes was both necessity and tradition, often shared among family or neighbors, done with rhythm and always with care. In a village courtyard, wide clay basins catch the morning light. Water, drawn from wells or streams, glistens inside. Soapwort, a flowering plant known for its gentle natural suds, is soaked and swirled until the water foams just enough. Its scent is light, a little grassy, a little sweet, almost like crushed stems underfoot after rain. Garments are soaked, rubbed gently, and rinsed. Each item tells a story. A linen tunic with fading stitching. A woolen shawl with a patch lovingly sewn. Nothing is disposable. Everything is cared for. Scrubbing doesn't mean scraping. It's a firm yet delicate rhythm. Fabric against fabric, hand over cloth. For stubborn spots, ashes from the hearth are added, a primitive but effective cleaner. And afterward, each piece is held up to the light, checked, rinsed in fresh water, and wrung out with practiced hands. Sometimes herbs are added to the rinse water, lavender, bay leaves, or crushed mint. These aren't just for scent. They help repel insects and leave behind the softest hint of calm. It isn't perfume, it's presence. A whisper of the garden, carried into daily life. Drying is done in stages. Some garments are draped over low shrubs, others across smooth, sun-warmed stones. Long tunics and blankets are hung on wooden lines, strung between trees or posts, waving gently in the breeze. The wind does its part, lifting, airing, curling corners into soft folds. Children often help. They shake out cloths, chase wind-tossed linens, and play beneath the fluttering lines like sails of some gentle ship. It becomes a kind of ritual, sunlight and laughter, mixing with the slow work of drying. Clothes dried this way carry more than just warmth. They carry scent of air, of earth, of time. A tunic worn after drying in rosemary-scented breeze feels like being wrapped in daylight. A woolen shawl stored with bay leaves holds the memory of morning long into the evening. Once dry, garments are folded with care. In finer homes, herbs are tucked into the folds, little sachets made from scraps of linen, filled with dried flowers and fragrant leaves. These are stacked on shelves or tucked beneath beds. In humbler homes, fresh branches are laid between layers, the oils slowly infusing the fabric. Every family has their own scent signature. One home may favor lavender, another, marjoram, another, wild thyme. These preferences pass down from mother to daughter, father to son, as part of a household's quiet identity. And laundry is never just laundry. It's preparation for festivals, for guests, for changing seasons. Before a child's naming day, before a midsummer gathering, before the first frost, linens are washed, herbs refreshed, scents renewed. In this way, ancient people dressed not just in fabric but in feeling. Their clothes carried memory, tradition, care. When night comes, and they lay under a blanket that smells faintly of sunlight and sage, they do not need a lullaby. The scent is enough to calm them, and maybe you too feel that comfort, the sense of cloth warmed by wind, softened by water, scented by time. In every ancient home, the kitchen was more than just a place to make meals. It was the soul of the house. It held warmth, rhythm, memory, and above all, it held scent. From morning to night, the air in and around the kitchen shifted like music, not with artificial fragrances, not with chemical freshness, but with the honest, evolving smells of cooking, curing, baking, and preserving. Smells that told stories. In a small stone home, maybe built into a hillside or nestled among olive trees, the kitchen was often just a corner of the main room. No walls, just a hearth, a few clay pots, baskets of grain, a mortar and pestle, a simple shelf of herbs, a wooden board stained by years of kneading and chopping. At dawn, the kitchen smelled cool, like clay, old ash, and the crusts of yesterday's bread. But once the fire was kindled, everything began to change. A low pot placed over the flames, maybe lentils soaked overnight, now bubbling with chopped onions, crushed garlic, and olive oil. The scent was humble, nourishing, slow. There were no timers, no dials, just the sound of simmering, the crackle of wood, an instinct honed over time. A stir here, a hand near the flame. Cooking was a conversation, not a task. It required listening, garlic sizzling in oil, the earthy richness of onions browning, thyme, marjoram, oregano, each dropped in, releasing their perfume in wisps of steam. These scents didn't just speak of food, they spoke of people. Every family had its way. Every village had its flavor. Bread shaped the kitchen's scent story too. Dough made from wheat or barley, kneaded on boards dusted with flour, then into clay ovens, sometimes outdoors, sometimes inside the hearth wall. The heat rose slowly, the crust browned and blistered. The air thickened with the smell of yeast, smoke, and golden bread. Children lingered near the oven, not from impatience, but because the smell was so inviting. A little flour on the nose, a stolen pinch of dough. These memories stayed forever, because the scent of bread became the scent of home. Cheese hung in cloth bundles from the rafters, aging slowly. Its smell was sharp, but known. Salted fish, smoked meats, preserved fruits. Every food had its time, its scent, its season. Even the strongest smells were welcome. They weren't hidden. They were balanced. To soften them, people returned to herbs and nature. Rosemary or bay leaves were burned lightly on coals. Their smoke rose gently, fragrant, not choking. It slipped through chimneys or doors, taking heavier smells with it. Juniper twigs popped and cracked, releasing clean, resinous air. Mint and lemon balm were scattered across shelves, tucked among clay pots. Orange peels dried by the hearth, their oils sweetening the air. Lavender nestled in baskets of onions, laid beneath garlic, not to hide, but to harmonize. When there were windows, they stayed wide open. Linen curtains, reed mats, whatever let the breeze through. Steam carried out, birdsong carried in. In spring the air was grassy and new. In summer, dry and warm, with the scent of stone. Kitchen smells mingled with the seasons, and meals shifted with them. Spring brought young greens, tender roots, bright herbs. The kitchen smelled green, peppery, alive. Summer meant grilling, preserving, cooling broths. Autumn, roasted squash, grains, honey cakes. Winter brought the richest scents, stews, legumes, wood smoke clinging to everything. The kitchen didn't just belong to the cook. It belonged to everyone. Children fetched herbs, stirred pots like it was sacred. Elders passed down methods. Guests were offered tastes from the pot's edge. It was where food fed both body and soul. Even after the fire was out, the smell lingered. Ash and oil, baked barley's sweet tang, the soft scent of washed bowls drying on stone. At night, the kitchen slept, but its stories stayed, written in scent. Sometimes herbs were left to warm overnight on coals. Lavender, chamomile, pine. Their aroma drifted slowly through the house, like the kitchen sighing in its sleep. And in the dark, you might wake, smell rosemary in the air, and smile, knowing everything was all right, because that was the power of kitchen smells. Beyond hunger, beyond recipes. They whispered, "You are home." They said, "This is safety." They reminded, "You are cared for." And in ancient times, that was everything. In ancient villages, animals weren't kept apart from human life. They weren't fenced in distant fields or hidden behind barn doors. They were part of the household, woven into daily routines, sounds, and even scents. Chickens clucked near doorsteps. Goats nibbled grass just beyond the kitchen. A donkey might rest beside the home, tied loosely beneath an olive tree. To live well with animals was to live closely, attentively. Each animal had its place and its care. In a small stone courtyard, chickens pecked at grain tossed on hard-packed earth. Their feathers ruffled as they searched, heads bobbing. Their presence was welcome, even necessary. They gave eggs, helped with food scraps, and added life to quiet mornings. But animals brought smells too. Straw soaked with moisture, droppings that piled up, the musky scent of goats, the sharp tang of chicken waste, the occasional whiff of wet fur. In a world without industrial cleaners, ancient people had to live with these scents, respectfully, practically, gently. The answer, as always, was rhythm and herbs. Goat pens were cleaned often, sometimes daily, sometimes every few days. Fresh straw was laid down in soft golden layers, soiled bedding gathered into baskets and carried to compost heaps or fields. Even the cleaning itself was an act of care. Never rushed, never angry, just part of life. Before laying new straw, crushed mint, thyme, or sweetgrass was scattered on the floor. These weren't random choices. Mint cooled the air and kept insects away. Thyme released a soft warmth when crushed under hooves. Sweetgrass gave off a faint, honeyed perfume that softened the stronger scents of the pen. Chickens were kept in wooden coops or allowed to roost on high beams in the entryway. Their droppings, pungent but expected, were swept up each morning with straw brooms. Ashes from the hearth were sprinkled to help dry and deodorize the space. The chickens clucked contentedly as rosemary needles or lemon peel shavings were scattered nearby. Even the donkey, sturdy, loyal, patient, fit into this rhythm. Its stall, built beside the home or beneath a covered overhang, was lined with hay, a small bucket of water, maybe a blanket on cold nights, aromatic branches like laurel or bay tucked beneath the bedding, not just for scent, but for calm, for comfort. Children were taught early how to clean with gentleness, how to sweep with long, steady strokes, how to scatter herbs with an open hand. They learned not to fear dirt, but to understand it, to see cleaning as an act of kindness. The presence of animals brought rhythm to each day, feeding at sunrise, watering at noon, sweeping at dusk. These cycles created structure, movements tied to the rising and setting of the sun, and at night, the sound of animals wasn't noise. It was comfort. A goat shifting in its pen, a chicken murmuring softly, even the low, sleepy bray of a donkey. These were lullabies of the old world, signals that all was right, that the home was full, that nothing had been forgotten. The smells stayed too. Subtle, but there. Clean straw, the earthy sweetness of a tended stable, a hint of citrus peel on the floor. Together they wove a tapestry of life, honest and grounded. Today we often keep animals apart from our homes, but in ancient times, they were part of the same life. And in that closeness, there was peace. There was rhythm, a way of living that embraced life's mess and answered it with care, with herbs, with patience, and maybe, just maybe, we can carry a little of that with us tonight. As the sun reached its peak, the village began to slow. The heat of midday made tools heavy, footsteps soft, thoughts sluggish. But instead of pushing through, ancient people paused. They didn't fight the warmth. They rested in it. They embraced the stillness. They made room for quiet, for shade, for tea. Inside cool stone homes, the temperature dropped just enough to offer comfort. Thick walls, built from sun-warmed clay or stone, held back the heat. Small windows let the light in gently. Mats were laid on floors, cushions fluffed. A breeze drifted through a door left ajar. In the center of the home, or maybe in a shaded courtyard, a small clay pot sat atop a metal tripod. Beneath it, embers from the morning hearth glowed faintly. A jug of water, drawn earlier and kept in shadow, was poured into the pot. Then came the herbs. Chamomile for calm, rose petals for sweetness, orange peel for warmth. The herbs unfurled as the water heated, releasing their scent like stories. No boiling, just steeping. A gentle coaxing of aroma from leaf and flower. The smell filled the room, floral, soft, healing. Cups were not fancy, just clay or wood worn smooth by use. The tea was ladled and passed from hand to hand. Each person sipped slowly, not for refreshment alone, but for peace. It wasn't about caffeine or alertness. It was about warmth, softness, the simple joy of a pause. Outside, the village fell quiet. Even the animals rested. Chickens tucked their heads beneath their wings. Goats sprawled in patches of shade. The donkey blinked lazily, tail flicking. Everyone, everything exhaled. Within the home, silence settled like a blanket. Someone might nap. Someone else might mend or spin wool, hands moving slowly. A child might rest their head on a parent's lap, the scent of rose tea mingling with the soft rustle of breath. Sometimes, tea was shared with guests, a neighbor passing by, a relative returning from the fields. A shared cup meant friendship. A shared moment meant trust. Herbs changed with the seasons. In spring, violets and lemon balm. In summer, spearmint and dried citrus. Autumn brought cinnamon bark and fig leaf. In winter, sage and elderflower. Each blend held memory, passed down from mother to child like a treasure. No sugar cubes, no biscuits, just tea, and maybe a handful of almonds. Maybe a fig, dried, sticky, sweet. Then, as the heat softened and the light tilted, the village stirred again. Not all at once, just gently. Tools were picked up, doors opened, but something lingered. Tranquility, warmth, the sweetness of herbs on the tongue. This was the gift of midday tea, not the drink, but the breath it gave the day, a soft intermission, a moment of restoration. And tonight, as you lie down to rest, imagine that moment. The breeze, the tea, the hush, it's all still there, waiting. Children begin to drift home. A last game, a last call from a doorway. Someone whistles, a simple two-note tune. a signal that it's time to go in, time to prepare for sleep. And still, the air changes. It grows cooler, darker. The smell of night begins to arrive. Wet leaves, ashes, linen folded in quiet rooms. Maybe a hint of pine from the wood stacked near the hearth. Maybe the ghost of sage from earlier cooking. In this hour, everything softens. Voices lower, movements slow. There is no push, no demand, just a gentle closing of the day, like a book with worn pages. You feel it too, even now, that gathering stillness, the peace that only comes when everything has been tended to, not perfectly, but with care. So imagine walking down that stone path, your bare feet brushing warm dust, the sky above you darkening, stars not yet seen. You smell rosemary, lavender water, sun-baked clay, and something more, contentment. This is how they ended their days, with breath, with scent, with quiet. And so do you. As the last colors of dusk give way to deeper blue, the village enters another phase, not asleep, but no longer fully awake. The space between day and night is sacred, quiet, and filled with intention. In ancient homes, preparing for sleep wasn't a task to be rushed through. It was a ritual. One small gesture at a time, families transformed their living spaces from the bustle of the day into cocoons of stillness. It begins with light, not the flick of a switch, but the careful lighting of a lamp. A shallow clay dish, filled with olive oil, is fitted with a braided wick. A parent strikes flint against stone or retrieves an ember from the hearth. The wick is lit, and immediately a soft glow pools across the room. It flickers gently, painting shadows on the walls. The light isn't strong, but it's enough. Enough to see one another's faces, enough to feel safe. The fire in the hearth is not fully extinguished. It's stirred instead. Embers rearranged to glow steadily. Over the fire, a small clay pot of water is warmed. Into it go herbs, dried lavender, chamomile, pine needles. As the water heats, their scent begins to rise, light, floral, woodsy. The smell doesn't demand attention. It simply fills the air, soft as a blanket. Elsewhere in the home, small bowls of water are refreshed. One may be used to wash hands and feet. Another might sit beside the door, symbolizing welcome and purification. The act of pouring is quiet, almost meditative. You can hear the water hitting the clay. You can feel the coolness in the air. Beds are made, not with urgency but with care. Straw mattresses are fluffed by hand, shaken lightly to loosen dust and soften the shape. Linen cloths are laid flat and tucked at the corners. A wool blanket, thick and slightly rough, is folded at the foot. In some homes, small sachets of herbs are placed beneath pillows or tucked between layers. Sweet marjoram, rose petals, or even clove, depending on the season. The room is tidied. Toys are gathered and placed in baskets. Cloaks are folded. Shoes are set side by side. Each item returned to its place, not out of strictness, but out of reverence. The idea was not to perfect the space, but to soothe it, to let the home, too, rest. Someone might whisper a prayer, not loudly, not formally, just a few words meant for the air, for the ancestors, for the spirit of the home. Peace to this place, they might say, or let the night be kind. These words don't need to be remembered in detail. It's the intention that matters. Outside, the sounds of the village shift. The last goat is led into its pen. A baby cries softly, then settles. A breeze catches a linen curtain and lifts it gently before letting it fall. The smells of the night deepen. Burned wood, warmed herbs, fresh water. Inside, someone places a protective charm near the door. A feather, a carved symbol, a branch of laurel. Not because they expect danger, but because it brings comfort. Because it reminds them that the day has ended, and the home is guarded by love. Children begin to quiet. They settle into their beds, sometimes murmuring to themselves. A parent might stroke their hair or hum a lullaby. The soft thump of footsteps fades. Soon, the only sounds are those of the fire settling, the breath of sleepers, and the night itself. In this world, preparing for sleep is not a transition. It is a ceremony. It signals to the body and soul that it is safe to let go, to rest, to dream. And now perhaps your own lamp has been lit, your own air carries rosemary or chamomile, your own day has been folded and put away. Let the home grow quiet, let the night begin. When you think of ancient beds, you might imagine something hard or crude, but that's only part of the story. Yes, there were no spring mattresses, no memory foam, but there was intention, care, texture, scent, and above all, there was love. A bed began with straw. Not hay, the two were very different. Straw was softer, lighter, less likely to attract insects. It was fluffed by hand, sometimes mixed with dried herbs for fragrance and calm. Families might choose marjoram to ease anxiety, rose petals for comfort, or lavender to help with sleep. That straw was stuffed into a large sack, made of thick linen or wool. Over time, it softened, shaping itself to the sleeper's body. It wasn't uniform, but it was familiar. Each lump and dip, known and accepted. On top went layers of cloth, a bottom sheet, often rough-woven linen, a blanket or two, wool for colder seasons, lighter fabrics in warmer ones. Pillows, if used, were filled with straw or feathers, depending on what was available. Some families used folded cloaks as headrests. Everything served more than one purpose. Herbs played a role here too. In wealthier homes, small sachets of dried herbs were stitched into pillow edges or tucked beneath them. The scent was faint, but present, something that lingered after the lights were out. Beds were arranged differently, home to home. In one-room dwellings, parents and children slept close together, not only for warmth, but for connection. A baby in a cradle near the hearth, a child nestled beside a parent, older children on mats nearby. In larger homes, there might be a raised platform, a side room, or a curtained area. Still, the feeling remained the same. Beds weren't just for sleep. They were for return, for dreaming, for safety. Children often fell asleep to the rhythms of the home, the crackle of coals, a whispered prayer, the rustle of straw beneath a shifting body. These were the lullabies of ancient life, not composed, not performed, but lived. And beds were more than physical places. They were emotional ones. A bed held you after a hard day, embraced you after illness, welcomed you after celebration. It was where you cried quietly, where you dreamed deeply, where you listened to the wind and remembered that the world could be still. Before sleep, a child might ask for a story, not always with words, just a look, a lean against the shoulder, and so a tale would begin. Not loudly, not formally, but like a candle being lit, softly, just enough to light the night. The child would drift off before it ended, but the bed would remember. The scent of lavender in the linens, the weight of the blanket, the faint heat of the hearth, these details stayed with them, long after they'd grown. Perhaps tonight, your own bed can feel like that. Not perfect, but made with care, fluffed with memory, held together with warmth. Because in the end, that's what beds are for. Not just rest, but return. As night deepens and the home settles, something timeless begins. A flickering lamp glows softly in a corner. The fire in the hearth has dimmed to coals, throwing long, slow-moving shadows across the walls. Children lie under their blankets, quiet now. Adults sit on low stools or cushions, perhaps mending a cloak or spinning a bit of wool, their hands moving automatically. And then, someone begins to speak. It isn't announced. There's no dramatic pause. No once upon a time. The tale rises gently into the room, like the scent of myrrh smoldering in the hearth ash. Unexpected, but comforting. Familiar. The storyteller is usually someone older, a grandmother perhaps, or a father who remembers stories passed down from his mother. Their voice is slow, even, unrushed. Not loud, not theatrical, just steady, lulling. The kind of voice that blends with the flicker of light, that knows how to stretch a moment like warm dough. The story might be about a god who turned into a tree to escape a hunter, or why certain birds only sing at dusk, or how lavender came to be planted by every doorway, a guardian in purple robes. These tales are not always logical. They're not meant to be. They're maps of feeling, not geography. Lessons are there, but softly hidden, wrapped in metaphor, never imposed. Children listen with wide eyes at first, then slower blinks, then eyes half closed. They don't always follow the plot. That's not the point. What they hear is the rhythm. What they feel is the love. The repetition of safe patterns, the reassurance that someone is speaking and they are listening, and the night is safe enough for stories. Some tales are short, others wander. A story that starts with a lost ring may end in the stars. A tale about a clever fox might loop through 7 villages and 2 seas before returning home. It doesn't matter. There is no, "Are we almost done?" There is only the slow unfurling of words, like linen unraveling from a spool. Between phrases, there are silences, not awkward ones. Silences that allow the fire to speak too. Cracks and pops, the whisper of wind outside, maybe the faintest call of an owl. Stories may shift with the seasons. In winter, tales are longer, deeper, myths about snow and fire spirits, and the wolf who watches the moon. In spring, the stories lighten, tales of planting, love, rebirth. In summer, short fables fill the warm air. Clever animals, mysterious winds, children who outwit the sun itself. Autumn brings quieter, melancholy stories of memory, harvest, things that change. Some stories are sacred, told only at certain times. A night before a festival, the winter solstice, a birthday. They are part of the home's identity, told the same way each time, never rushed, never altered. Others are spontaneous. A child asks why the stars twinkle, and a parent weaves a tale on the spot about shy stars who blink when we stare. A story about a lost sandal turns into an epic journey across mountains, deserts, and 3 different languages. Laughter might erupt, or quiet nods, or just heavy breathing as the child finally drifts off. Not all stories are happy. Some are sad. A beloved tree struck by lightning. A sailor who never returned. But even those are told with softness, with hands that know how to hold grief gently. The story becomes a way to carry sadness without letting it break you. And often stories are told in parts. "That's enough for tonight," the elder says, just as the mystery deepens. "We'll finish tomorrow." The child stirs in protest, but secretly loves the suspense. It gives them something to dream about, something to return to. As the story winds down, the candle flickers lower. The storyteller's voice grows softer still. The room is dim now, warm, full of breath and memory. A pause, a final sentence, something simple. And that's how the fig tree learned to wait for spring. No applause, no comments, just a stillness, a settling of the words into the folds of the blankets, the corners of the room, the hearts of those listening. The lamp is dimmed. The last ember is stirred. A blanket is pulled up just a little higher. A sigh, a rustle. And then, sleep. Tales in Candlelight aren't just about entertainment. They're a form of care. a thread that ties generations together, a way to say, I see you, I love you. Let's rest now. And maybe as you lie here tonight, your own room flickering softly with imagined firelight, your own heart can listen for a story, one about stars or birds or the dream you've been carrying all day. It doesn't have to be perfect, just true enough to feel, just soft enough to soothe. Good night, dear listener. The story is done, but the dream is just beginning. As the last story fades into the walls and the final embers whisper softly in the hearth, the ancient home shifts into silence. But before true sleep takes hold, there are a few more moments, rituals so quiet, so simple, they might seem invisible. Yet they are powerful, tender, and deeply human. These aren't grand ceremonies. They are acts done with the hands, more than the mouth, known more by the body than the mind. They are the gentle edges of the day, where wakefulness dissolves and rest begins. A small basin of water is set beside the hearth. The water, warmed by the fading fire, glows faintly in the lamplight. Someone kneels beside it, dipping a linen cloth, or just their hands. Washing the hands and face before bed is not about dirt. It's about release, about rinsing away the energy of the day. The firewood carried, the herbs crushed, the flour kneaded, the embraces given. All of it is honored, and then softly let go. The water may be infused with a few leaves of lemon or rose petals, floated earlier in the evening so their scent could bloom. Just a hint, enough to touch the skin with calm. After washing, the cloth is folded and laid beside the basin. A parent helps a child do the same, guiding little fingers to dip, squeeze, and pat dry. No need for instruction. The rhythm is passed down like music. Then comes the oil. Just a drop, nothing dramatic. Maybe olive oil mixed with lavender, or a bit of sweet almond infused with crushed chamomile. A finger dips into the dish, touches the temples, the wrists, behind the ears. It's a scent, yes, but also a message. You are safe now. You are held. In some homes, a mother hums as she does this, a tune known only to the family, passed from voice to voice, like an heirloom. Other times, there are whispered blessings, short phrases. Sleep gently. Let the night be kind. Dream only of light. These aren't spoken with weight. They drift through the air like smoke, the kind of words you remember in feeling, not in meaning. Fathers, too, take part, folding the blankets, checking the shutters, stirring the coals one last time to keep the cold at bay. Each action says the same thing. The home is ready. The family is whole. The night may begin. For children, the rituals become anchors, not always understood but always known. The same cloth, the same oil, the same soft kiss on the forehead. In a world that changes, from seasons to sickness to the unknown, these acts do not. They are constants. Even for those alone, the rituals matter. Washing the hands in silence, laying a blanket with care, lighting a small lamp to keep company until the first breath of sleep. They are ways of remembering, I am here. I am enough. The day has ended, and I have done what I could. Outside, the wind may shift, an owl may call, a branch may creak, but inside, everything that needed to be done has been. The rituals are over, but their warmth remains, in the scent that clings to the wrist, in the hush that lives in the air, in the way the body knows it is time. Tonight, maybe your hands have touched warm water, maybe you've lit a small light, or maybe your ritual is simply this: listening, breathing, remembering that you, too, are part of a long line of sleepers. Let your own night ritual begin, or simply let it be. The world at night is not silent. Far from it. But it is quieter, slower, deeper. The noises change, less metal and chatter, more whisper and breath. In ancient times, when the village rested and the fire's crackle dimmed, night became its own voice, and those who listened heard stories in the dark. You might lie in bed, wrapped in linen and wool, the straw beneath you warm from your own body. You stare at the ceiling beams or the flickering shadows they cast. You close your eyes, and then you hear it. Not loud, not startling, just there. The rustle of a fig tree's leaves outside, stirred by a gentle breeze. The low call of a distant owl, deep and hollow, repeating at long intervals. The soft rhythmic breath of someone sleeping beside you. These sounds don't interrupt. They cradle. They remind you, you are part of this. Wind moves differently at night. It curls along stone walls, slips through reed fences, brushes past thatched roofs. You can feel it on your cheek if your bed lies near a window or door. Cool, but not cold. A messenger carrying the scent of herbs and stars. Sometimes you hear the faint thud of a goat shifting in its stall, or a chicken's sleepy murmur. These sounds don't wake you. They ground you. The animals are calm. The world is turning. The night is doing its work. Inside the home, the last lamp flickers. A sigh. Maybe yours. Maybe the house's. The coals in the hearth shift softly, cracking in the darkness. You know the fire will last till dawn, even if you don't. It has its own rhythm, slow and sure. In some homes, incense is burned, myrrh if available, or frankincense, or local resins. Not clouds of smoke, but thin threads trailing upward like thoughts. Their scent changes the air, not to mask it, but to sanctify it, to mark the passage into sleep. Others simply breathe. No incense, no light, just the weight of blankets, the scent of lavender from the bed's edge, and the hush of all things done. Night reveals what day hides, not in brightness, but in space, in quiet. You can hear your own thoughts more clearly, or better yet, let them pass without chasing them. You are not required to solve or speak, only to listen, to feel. Even the creaks of the house feel alive. Wood shifts in response to temperature. A drop of water finds its path down the roof. These are not distractions. They are signs that you live in something breathing, something old and kind and safe. And far above, though you may not see them, the stars wheel slowly across the sky. The same ones your ancestors watched, the same ones sailors steered by, the same ones woven into the myths whispered at dusk. You are held in that vastness, but not lost in it. You are still here, still listening, still part of a world that never fully stops but always knows how to rest. Tonight, you don't need music, don't need stories, just listen. To your breath, to your room, to the night. In ancient life, before clocks told us what to expect, it was the senses that signaled change. Light shifted across the fields, shadows grew longer, and perhaps most evocatively, scents changed. Smell was the calendar, the sky's breath, the unspoken memory of every season. People didn't just see the world change, they inhaled it. In spring, the scent of earth was the first to arrive. Before any flower bloomed, before green returned to the trees, the ground itself whispered, "I'm waking." It was a rich, dark smell, soil turned damp by rain, moss on stones, last year's leaves crushed into mulch. Children running barefoot across gardens would carry that scent on their heels, tracked into the house on skin and straw. Then came the herbs, mint pushing up between stones, lemon balm unfolding its leaves, violets, tiny and shy, peeking from the base of walls. These weren't just pleasant. They were promises. Women would gather them in the mornings, fingers damp with dew. Their hands held the season itself, fresh, peppery, tinged with light. As spring advanced, homes took on a green, growing smell. Windows were propped open, fresh rushes were laid, bedding was shaken out beneath fig trees and brought back in, smelling of blossom and wind. Even the animals seemed scented with life. Goats smelled sharper, cleaner. Chickens dusted themselves in fragrant corners of the yard. The whole village inhaled renewal. In summer, the smells deepened. The days were longer, and so were the perfumes. Lavender bloomed in full. Rosemary thickened in the heat. Olive trees gave off a scent not just from their fruit, but from their bark and leaves, resinous and dusty, warmed by the sun. Cooking smells grew stronger. Herbs scorched in pans. Bread baked harder. Cheese ripened more quickly. The kitchens spilled their aromas into the streets, mingling with the dry, crackling scent of sunlit stone and ripening fruit. People dried herbs on every surface, roofs, ropes, window ledges. The air buzzed with bees, and everything smelled of nectar and smoke. The wind in summer carried fewer mysteries but more clarity, more sharpness, more of what was real and right in front of you. Autumn was the smell of closing, of preparing. The herbs were thicker, more pungent. Sage and bay dominated the kitchens. Grain was ground, releasing the scent of dust and flour into the air. Apples, sliced and sun-dried, gave off a sticky, sweet perfume that made the whole village smell like memory. Wool returned to blankets. Wool smelled like fields and animals, and the end of a long day. Fires burned hotter, earlier in the evening. The scent of smoke became ever-present, curling through the nostrils and the lungs, a signal to gather close. And then winter came. It was not silent. It was scented with its own strange palate: sharp pine, wet wood, the mineral sting of stone walls after frost. Blankets smelled of storage chests, of bay leaf and cedar. The hearth dominated the home now, not just for heat, but for scent. Everything passed through smoke: fish, grain, hands. Even the herbs now hung indoors took on a ghost of fire. The rooms smelled of preservation, of stillness, of patience. There were no blooming flowers, but there was wool and wood and warmth. In winter, scent traveled farther. A pine branch brought indoors could perfume a room for days. A single orange, cracked open, would be passed around just for the smell alone. Children would hold cloves and cinnamon bark like treasures, not to eat, but to breathe in, to remember. Families kept bundles of herbs from other seasons, not to use, just to hold, to sniff, to transport themselves. A whiff of summer rosemary in the depth of December, a dried violet tucked in a blanket chest. The smells told stories of sun and rest and change, and through it all, people spoke in scent. "It smells like first rain," a mother would say, and the child would know what she meant, that it was time to cover the grain, to collect water, to listen for thunder. "It smells like snow," said in early dusk, meant to bring in the goats to close the shutters. "It smells like harvest." "It smells like wind." Each phrase was a poem, a warning, a memory, and always, the home responded to these changes. Herbs were swapped, blankets aired, the smells of life moved in and out like breath. Even now, you know this truth. The way autumn smells different, even in your own world. The way a thunderstorm carries its own perfume. You felt it. You've remembered something from your childhood, just from a waft of rosemary or the tang of winter air. Scent is ancient memory. So tonight, as you drift to sleep, let your own sense of smell carry you. Maybe your room smells of linen, or soap, or nothing at all. Still, it knows the seasons. It knows your rhythms. Breathe in. You're part of the cycle, just like those before you. To relax in the ancient world did not mean to do nothing. It meant to be present, to let the body and mind rest not through escape, but through simple, intentional acts. Relaxation wasn't indulgence, it was rhythm. A moment of stillness folded naturally between tasks, a breath between labors, a hush in the day's long hum. Some people found peace sitting beneath trees, olive, fig, or cypress, where shadows moved gently across stone and earth. They sat not to meditate as we might define it, but to watch, to breathe with the wind, to feel the rhythm of the branches and the light on their skin. This was not structured mindfulness. It was belonging, a way of letting the self return to the world, not retreat from it. Others relaxed through repetition, spinning wool between fingertips, grinding herbs with a slow circular motion in a stone mortar. These weren't chores when done slowly. They were lullabies for the hands, soft, tactile rhythms that soothed the thoughts as much as they produced goods. Soft music, too, was part of rest. A pipe carved from hollow reed, a lyre's strings plucked gently in the shade, a rhythm tapped on a clay jar, fingers echoing in low, round sounds. There was no performance, just presence, just a moment shared. Music not as an event, but as a sigh. Even daily work could be restful, if done slowly, if done with intention. A woman braiding bread with her child beside her, a man carving wood, not to finish something, but to feel a shape emerge beneath his hands. These tasks didn't shout, they whispered, and in their quiet repetition, there was peace. Children learned this naturally. They gathered petals, arranged pebbles, traced patterns in dust, not hurried, not distracted, just following their curiosity at the pace of their breath. Sometimes people sat with water, a bowl of warm water scented with rosemary or sage, hands soaking, cloth dipped and folded, not because they needed to clean, but because the water invited stillness, because it was a way to return to their bodies gently. Older villagers often found rest in storytelling, not loud tales, but slow ones, told at twilight. The story was not a break from the world. It was a deepening of it, a way to breathe into time, not rush past it. In the quietest moments, someone might lie down in the middle of the day, not to nap necessarily, but just to lie still, to feel their limbs, their breath, to hear the sounds of goats outside, wind through trees, a distant laugh. These moments were not called anything special. They were just part of life, normal, necessary. Ancient people didn't speak of self-care. They lived it, not always perfectly, not always easily, but woven through their days were these small acts of rebalancing. And so, when night came, they didn't collapse into sleep. They arrived there, having softened their bodies, having breathed, having remembered that rest was not something to earn. It was something to honor. And you too might remember this tonight. That relaxation doesn't have to be grand or scheduled or measured. It can be the pace of your breath, the warmth of your blanket, the rhythm of your thoughts slowing down. Let yourself return. Let your body soften. You don't need to do nothing. You just need to be. Ancient homes were not filled with clutter. Every item had a place, a meaning, and some had more than purpose. They had presence, quiet, sacred presence. These were the symbols, small, often unnoticed objects placed not for decoration, but for remembrance, for blessing, for freshness, for peace. By a window, you might see a feather tucked between stones. It's not a bird's token. It's a message of air, of freedom, of softness, of the wind that moves through and takes what is heavy with it. Above the doorway, a small carved charm, Maybe a spiral, a sun, a pair of eyes. These were not ornate, not mass-produced, just simple symbols, passed down or made by hand. They told a story, that the threshold is a sacred place, that the outside world stops here, that this is a home, on a shelf, a shell, white and ridged, smooth from the sea. It doesn't belong to this inland village. It was carried, traded, gifted. It smells faintly of salt and openness. It is placed where light touches it at dawn, not to impress, but to remind that even far places are part of our story. Near the hearth, bundles of herbs, not for cooking, not for washing, just for being. Dried sage tied with red twine, lavender, bundled and hung upside down. Laurel branches laid across beams. They scent the air, yes. But more importantly, they say, this home is alive. This home breathes with us. Some homes kept little pouches of beads soaked in rose oil, or small knots of cloth filled with bay leaf and sweetgrass. These were tucked in corners, placed between cushions, set near sleeping spaces. They were not for display. They were guardians, not magical, but meaningful. Sometimes families passed these bundles down. This one came from my mother's mother. The scent might be long gone, but the memory was fragrant still. Children knew these symbols. They didn't always understand them, but they felt them. They asked, "Why is there a feather by the door?" And the answer was a smile. Because feathers belong near the wind. Some symbols were seasonal, fresh pine branches at winter's edge, dried figs in summer, a cluster of wheat on the harvest table. These weren't just decorations. They marked time. They gave shape to memory. Others were personal. A small stone shaped like a heart, a knot of thread tied during a difficult night, a coin found on a lucky walk, placed quietly, kept tenderly. In a world without clocks or calendars, these objects kept rhythm. In a world without mass production, they held energy. They whispered of intention, of care. They reminded people, you live not just in a space, but in a sanctuary. Even now, we do this. A photo by the bed, a flower on the table, a scent we reach for when we need to feel like ourselves. So tonight, think of your own symbols, not the ones others see, but the ones that settle your breath, that make your space feel like your own. Maybe it's a stone, maybe a scent, maybe just this story. Let it rest near you. Let it remind you, you are home. And now, like the ancient people we've spent the evening with, you are drifting. There is no more fire to tend, no floor to sweep, no herb to hang. Everything is still. The village has gone quiet. The stars have taken their places. And the home, your home, is ready for night. You are lying down now, just as they did, on straw perhaps, or linen, on a mattress filled with softness and stories. Maybe your head rests against a pillow scented faintly with rosemary, or your feet are tucked beneath a blanket that holds the warmth of the day. Maybe your bed is modern, but tonight, it is ancient too. You share the moment with generations past, people who lived by sun and moon, who listened for the wind, who lit lamps and washed their hands before sleep, people who cared for their homes, their families, and the gentle rituals that carried them into rest. And as you lie there, your breathing deepens. You may feel your chest rise, fall, rise, fall, like the sea, like the wind, like the quiet rhythm of old footsteps on packed earth. Outside, the village dreams. The olive trees sway faintly. An owl coasts silently over the rooftops. A donkey shifts in its stall. The stars shine, not for anyone in particular, but for the world. They do what they've done for thousands of years. They glow, they wait, they witness. No one is asking anything of you now. Not the sun, not the fire, not the stories. Everything that needed to be said has been said. Everything that needed to be done is already done. This is the time of surrender, not in defeat, but in softness. You are not letting go of your power. You are letting go of the need to hold everything at once. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to be nothing more than a person with a breath and a body and a place to sleep. In the ancient world, sleep was a kind of return, a return to self, a return to peace, and sometimes they believed a return to the gods, who visited in dreams or carried one's soul gently for a time. You may not dream of gods tonight, but you may dream of gardens, of warm bread, of lavender water and rushes beneath your feet. You may dream of slow footsteps through the dusk, or stories told in candlelight. And if you don't dream at all, that's all right. Sleep will still come. It always has. For children and elders, for potters and shepherds, for you. Let your body grow heavier. Let your thoughts soften. You are safe. You are warm. You are whole. Breathe in once more, slowly, deeply. Let your lungs fill with this old air, this story-scented stillness, and then exhale. Drift. You are not alone in this sleep. Across centuries, others have lain just like this, hearts beating slow, limbs relaxed, covered by night, protected by quiet, blessed by the small, unseen rituals of care. You are one of them now. You have been. You will be. So sleep. Sleep in linen and love. Sleep in story and silence. Sleep in peace.